They said the alien woman was dangerous. She only lowered her guard for me. He had been sent here as an engineer to maintain the machines that kept the station running. Life on the outpost was quiet and lonely, but that suited Ethan. He liked quiet. It gave him time to think, and he was good at thinking. The outpost had many rumors. Some were about the strange creatures humans had met on other planets. One rumor haunted this station more than the others. Everyone whispered about Ceres, the alien woman they called dangerous. Ethan had heard the stories the moment he arrived. Some said she could destroy a room with just her mind. Others claimed she had wiped out an entire patrol that had approached her too closely. No one had ever seen it, of course, but the fear was real. The soldiers and officers acted as if she were a walking bomb. Ethan had only seen her once. She stood behind a thick glass wall in the containment wing. Her skin was pale blue, almost glowing faintly under the harsh lights. Her eyes were large and black, reflecting everything around her. She did not speak to anyone. She did not move unless commanded. When she looked at Ethan, he felt something strange, almost like she was watching him carefully but without hatred or fear. Everyone else avoided her gaze. He had been warned by his commander, Laura King, to keep his distance. "She is dangerous," she had said, her voice serious. "No one gets close. Do not touch her, do not speak to her, do not even look at her for too long." Ethan had nodded, but deep inside he felt a pull to understand her. He wondered why no one could approach her safely, and yet he did not feel afraid. The day started as usual. Machines hummed, alarms tested themselves, and the hum of life continued in the empty corridors. Ethan was checking the maintenance logs on a terminal when the call came. "Ethan, we need you in the containment wing," the voice over the comm said. It was Officer Ben Carter. "Some of the life support systems are failing near Ceres section. Can you handle it alone?" Ethan rubbed his forehead. "Alone?" he asked. "Yes," Ben said. "No one else is allowed near her, just you. Be careful." Ethan sighed. This was the first time he had to go near her directly. He knew the warnings well. Everyone treated her like a weapon rather than a person, but something in him told him that the stories might be exaggerated. He grabbed his toolkit and walked toward the containment wing. As he approached, the lights flickered slightly and the hum of the station grew louder. He reached the glass door that separated him from her. Ceres was there, standing still, her head tilted slightly as if she were studying him. She did not smile. She did not frown. She simply looked. Ethan took a deep breath and spoke, even though he knew she might not respond. "I'm here to fix the life support system," he said. His voice was calm, steady. "I won't bother you, I just need to do my work." Ceres' eyes narrowed for a moment, and then she stepped aside. She moved smoothly, almost like she was gliding. Ethan froze slightly, surprised. He had expected hostility, or at least suspicion. But she moved without aggression. He stepped into the room. The air felt different here, cooler and almost electric. The machines hummed softly, and the smell of metal and coolant filled his nose. Ceres did not follow him. She stayed at a small distance, her arms crossed loosely. Ethan got to work, checking the terminals, adjusting valves, and monitoring the readings. The system was older than he expected, and it had been neglected for months. He wiped sweat from his forehead. "This might take some time," he said aloud. It felt strange talking to her, but he could not help it. Ceres tilted her head again. She said nothing, but her presence was calm. Ethan felt a small relief. Perhaps she was not as dangerous as the others claimed. Perhaps fear had made the stories worse. Hours passed. Ethan fixed wiring, replaced filters, and adjusted the pressure valves. He worked carefully, trying not to make sudden movements that might startle her. Every now and then he looked at her. She remained still, watching him with those deep black eyes. He realized she was not watching him like a predator. She was observing like a scientist observing an experiment. At one point, a valve sparkled and hissed, and the lights flickered. Ethan jumped back instinctively. Ceres moved before he could react, placing her hand near the valve. A soft glow surrounded her fingers, and the valve stabilized. Ethan stared. She had not touched him. She had not spoken. Yet the machine was calm, functioning properly. "You didn't need to do that," he said softly, unsure if she could hear him. "It's okay, I can handle it." Ceres' head tilted slightly. Then she did something unexpected. She walked a few steps closer. Her voice, quiet and melodic, filled the small room. "You do not fear me," she said. "Most humans do." Ethan blinked. He had expected anger or threat, but instead her words sounded almost curious. "I don't know why I should," he replied. "I've never known you. I only know the stories like everyone else." But I try to understand, not fear. Sarah studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded once, almost imperceptibly. It was the first gesture she had made toward anyone willingly. Ethan felt his heart beat faster. He had never felt this close to an alien before. He had repaired machines, explored dangerous areas, but this felt different. There was a silent trust forming, small but real. Over the next few days, Ethan returned to the containment wing multiple times. Each visit, he found Saris a little closer, a little more relaxed. She no longer glared at him suspiciously. She did not hide behind the glass. She let him work near her without showing aggression. Other people noticed. Officers whispered in the corridors. "Ethan is spending time with her," they said. "That is dangerous." But Ethan did not care. He felt a quiet responsibility to understand her, to treat her like a person and not a weapon. One night, when the station was quiet and the lights dim, Ethan found Saris sitting near a small viewport, looking out at the stars. He approached slowly, careful not to startle her. "Do you like it here?" he asked. "I mean the stars." Saris did not answer immediately. She turned her large black eyes toward him, considering. Finally, she said, "The stars are constant. Unlike humans, they do not lie, do not cheat. They are steady." Ethan nodded. "I like that too," he said. "It makes me feel small but safe." For the first time, Saris smiled slightly. It was subtle, barely noticeable, but Ethan saw it, a small curve of her lips. It felt like a small victory, a moment of connection. Then came a problem. A minor system alert flashed on the terminal, signaling that the air circulation was weakening. Ethan moved to fix it, but the panel sparked unexpectedly. He jumped back, fear rising. Saris moved closer immediately. With a calm gesture, she stabilized the panel with the same soft glow he had seen before. "You must be careful," she said. "Not everything here will wait." Ethan nodded, his hands trembling slightly. "I will," he said. "Thank you for helping me." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she said something that surprised him. "You are different, human. You see me as I am, not as what they say I am. That is rare." Ethan felt warmth in his chest. "Maybe fear makes people blind," he said softly. "Maybe they see only what they expect to see." Saris did not answer, but she did something that no one had ever seen before. She extended her hand, not aggressively, not threatening, simply an invitation, as if to acknowledge a bond that was forming. Ethan hesitated. Then he reached out and touched her hand gently. The glow of her skin pulsed softly under his touch, warm and calm. In that moment, Ethan understood something important. She was not the monster the rumors made her out to be. She was something else entirely, a being capable of great power, yes, but also capable of trust, and perhaps friendship. As he worked late into the night, repairing systems with her near him, he realized he had found something unexpected. In a place where fear ruled, he had discovered trust. And for the first time, Ethan did not feel alone on the lonely outpost. By the time the first light of the distant sun filtered through the viewport, Ethan had repaired all the systems. The station hummed quietly, perfectly balanced again. He looked at Saris, who watched the stars once more. "See," he said quietly. "Nothing exploded." Saris turned toward him, eyes softening. "For you, human, nothing will explode," Ethan smiled. He knew the work here was just beginning. But for the first time, he felt ready to face it all, fear, rumors, and the unknown. Because here, on this lonely outpost, he had found a connection that no one else could break. Ethan returned to the containment wing the next morning. The corridors of the station were quiet as always, only the hum of the engines and the soft clank of his boots filling the space. The sun from the distant star was weak here, just a faint glow through the thick windows of the observation deck. But Ethan liked the quiet. It gave him time to think and to focus on his work. When he entered the containment wing, Saris was already there. She was standing near a terminal, watching the monitors with those deep black eyes of hers. She looked calm, almost peaceful, and for a moment Ethan felt a strange relief. "Good morning," he said softly. "Everything seems fine so far." Saris did not answer immediately. She turned her head slightly and looked at him. Then she spoke in her soft, melodic voice. "You came back." Ethan smiled. "Of course, I promised I would fix the systems, and I do not leave work unfinished." She studied him silently. He could feel her attention, steady and unbroken. Most humans would have felt fear under her gaze, but Ethan felt something different. He felt calm. He felt accepted. Over the next few hours, Ethan worked on minor repairs. He adjusted panels, replaced broken circuits, and monitored the life support systems. Saris stayed nearby, watching him. Sometimes she moved closer, other times she stayed back. But she did not interfere unless she needed to. "You do not speak much," she said at one point. "I speak when necessary," Ethan replied. "And when I want to," he paused, looking at her. "Do you like talking?" Saris tilted her head. "I speak when I must, when I am not afraid." Ethan nodded. "I understand. Fear makes people do strange things. It makes them lie, hide, or attack. It makes them see monsters where there are none." Her black eyes studied him. "You do not see me as a monster." "No," Ethan said quietly. "I see you as a person, not a weapon. Not a rumor, just a person." For the first time, Saris moved even closer. She stood beside him as he worked, her hand brushing against his arm. The touch was light, almost accidental, but Ethan felt it. It was as if she was testing him, seeing if he would react with fear or anger. He did not. He simply continued his work. Days passed like this. Ethan spent hours near her, sometimes repairing systems, sometimes just talking. He learned a little about her, though she spoke sparingly. She told him that her species valued observation and understanding. They reacted violently only when threatened or when someone acted with hostility. That explained why she had never attacked him. He had never shown fear, never threatened her. One evening, as the station's artificial sun dimmed, Ethan noticed movement outside the viewport. A supply shuttle was approaching. He knew it meant more humans would arrive soon, and with them, suspicion and fear. "We have visitors," he said quietly to Saris. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Humans?" "Yes," Ethan replied. "Some come with orders, some with curiosity. Be ready." When the shuttle docked, officers and engineers entered the station. Most of them avoided the containment wing entirely. They whispered as they passed. Ethan could hear fragments of their conversation. "That alien is dangerous. Ethan Cole is risking everything. Why is he allowed near her?" Ethan ignored them. He focused on his work. Saris, however, seemed tense. She stayed close to him, watching the humans cautiously. Her tail flicked slightly behind her, a subtle sign of her alertness. One of the visiting engineers, a young woman named Anna Price, approached the containment wing. She paused at the doorway, glancing at Ethan and Saris. Her eyes widened. "Are you really working near her?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Ethan nodded. "Yes, she is not a threat to me." Anna shook her head. "Everyone says she is dangerous. You should not be here." Ethan looked at her calmly. "Rumors are not always true. Fear can make people see monsters where none exist." Saris watched silently. She did not speak, but her presence seemed to support Ethan. Anna looked uneasy and walked away, muttering under her breath. Over the next few days, Ethan noticed subtle changes in the station. Some officers watched him more closely. Some whispered to each other when he entered the corridors. But no one approached him directly. Fear kept them at a distance. Saris, on the other hand, grew more comfortable around him. She walked beside him as he checked systems. Sometimes she even assisted him, stabilizing small machinery with her soft, glowing hands. The other humans never saw this. To them, she was still the dangerous alien behind the glass. One afternoon, as Ethan worked on a power relay, Saris approached him quietly. "You are patient," she said softly. Ethan wiped sweat from his forehead. "I have to be. Machines do not respond to fear." She tilted her head. "Most humans cannot stay calm near me. They panic, they attack, they lie." "That is their choice," Ethan replied. "I choose to understand, not to fear." For a moment there was silence between them. Then she did something unexpected. She extended her hand again, this time toward a small panel Ethan was repairing. With her touch, the sparks disappeared and the machinery hummed quietly. "You are reliable," she said. "And you are helpful," Ethan replied with a small smile. Their bond grew slowly, quietly, and with care. It was not a bond of words or grand gestures, but of trust. Saris had never trusted anyone. Humans had always feared her, avoided her, or tried to control her. But Ethan was different. He treated her as an equal, as a being with thoughts and feelings. And for that reason, she began to lower her guard. One night, as the station rested under the soft glow of artificial lights, Ethan found Saris at the observation deck again. She was watching the stars, silent and still. He walked beside her. "You look at the stars often," he said. "They are constant," she replied. "They do not lie, they do not fear, they do not attack." Ethan nodded. "I like them too. They remind me that some things are steady no matter what happens." Saris turned her head toward him. "You are different human." "I try to be," Ethan said quietly. "Not many people are calm around you. They see danger. I see someone who can be trusted." For a moment, Saris was silent. Then she did something she had never done before. She smiled fully. It was not a small curve of her lips this time. It was a real, warm smile, soft and genuine. Ethan felt his chest tighten. He had never expected such a thing from her. "You make me feel safe," she said softly. Ethan shook his head. "I should say the same to you." In the following weeks, their bond became stronger. Ethan worked near her every day, repairing systems, monitoring life support, and occasionally talking quietly about stars, planets, or life outside the station. Sarah spoke more now, telling him small details about her species, their customs, and their way of thinking. She never spoke to anyone else like this. To others, she was the dangerous alien behind the glass. But to Ethan, she was just Saris, alive, thoughtful, and capable of trust. However, not everyone was pleased. Officer Laura King noticed their growing closeness. She had warned Ethan many times about the danger of being near Saris. Now, seeing the two of them working side by side, she became suspicious. "Ethan," she said one morning, approaching him at the terminal, "you are spending too much time near her." "I am monitoring the systems," Ethan replied calmly. "She is helping, there is no danger." Laura shook her head. "She is unpredictable, you cannot control her, you do not know what she is capable of." "I do not need to control her," Ethan said. "I just need to understand her." Laura frowned but said nothing. She walked away, muttering about protocol and orders. Ethan watched her leave, then turned to Saris, who was quietly observing him. She gave him a small nod, as if acknowledging that he was doing the right thing. Their trust continued to grow. Ethan learned to read her subtle movements, her small gestures, and her expressions. He could tell when she was curious, relaxed, or tense. In turn, Saris began to anticipate his actions, assisting him without words. Their teamwork became silent, efficient, and seamless. Then one evening, a minor system failure occurred. The air circulation slowed and alarms began to flash. Ethan moved quickly, but the problem was more complex than usual. He tried to fix it, but the sparks from the panels startled him. Saris moved immediately, glowing softly, and stabilized the system before it could cause any harm. "You saved me from panic," Ethan said quietly. "You stayed calm," she replied. "That is why I helped." Ethan smiled. "We make a good team." For the first time, Ethan realized that their bond was more than just trust. It was a connection of understanding, patience, and respect. They relied on each other in a way that no one else could. The humans outside the containment wing still feared her. They still whispered and avoided her, but inside they had something stronger than fear. Ethan knew the challenge was not over. Others would always judge Saris by rumors, by fear, and by her reputation. But he also knew that he could show them another way, one small step at a time. With patience, care, and understanding, he could help others see the truth. As the station quieted for the night, Ethan and Sarah stood together by the viewport, watching the distant stars. The hum of the engines, the soft glow of the lights, and the calm of the station created a quiet peace. For the first time, Ethan felt that the rumors, the fear, and the danger were not the most important things. The most important thing was trust. And with Saris, trust had finally begun to grow. Ethan had been working on the station for several weeks. The routines were predictable, the machinery familiar, and Saris had become a quiet companion in his daily work. The bond between them had grown steadily, almost like a silent understanding. But even in this calm, the station had a way of reminding him that peace was fragile. It began with the alarms. A low, continuous beep echoed through the corridors, followed by flashing red lights. Ethan looked up from the control panel he was repairing. "What now?" he muttered. A voice came over the comm. "Alert! Breach in the outer docking bay, unauthorized ship approaching." Ethan felt a chill. Pirates were rare in this sector, but they still existed. The station's defenses were automated, but a direct attack could damage vital systems. He ran toward the containment wing, hoping Saris was safe. As he entered, he saw her standing near the observation deck, calm but alert. Her eyes were sharp, scanning the monitors and the corridor. Ethan noticed the tension in her posture. Even she, with all her power, seemed wary. "They are coming," she said softly without turning. "Pirates," Ethan replied. "We need to stay calm and protect the station." The doors to the wing hissed as they sealed automatically. Soldiers and officers scrambled to their stations, activating defense protocols. Ethan stayed with Saris. He did not want her to feel alone or threatened. The first pirate ships appeared on the monitors. Small, fast, and aggressive, they were scanning for weaknesses in the station's defenses. Ethan's heart raced. He had never faced real danger like this. Most of his work involved repairs and systems checks, not combat, but now he had no choice. "Stay behind me," he told Saris. She did not move. Instead, she observed him, her expression unreadable. Ethan realized that she trusted him to handle the situation. That thought gave him courage. The pirates fired first small energy pulses that hit the outer walls. The station shook and sparks flew from damaged panels. Alarms blared, and the soldiers reacted immediately, firing automated defenses. Ethan ran toward the control panels to stabilize the systems. Suddenly, one of the soldiers panicked. A young man named Kevin screamed, "She's dangerous, move away from her." Ethan turned. Kevin had pulled his weapon and aimed at Saris, fear written all over his face. Without thinking, Ethan stepped between them. "Stop!" he shouted. "Do not shoot!" Saris did not move. She remained calm, her glowing hands hovering slightly in front of her. Ethan could feel the energy in the room shift. The soldier hesitated, confused by her calmness. "She will not hurt you," Ethan said firmly. "If you fire, it will be your fault." Kevin lowered his weapon slightly, still shaking. Ethan turned to Saris. "Now," he whispered. She raised her hands and a soft blue light spread across the room. It pulsed gently, touching the walls and the damaged panels. Sparks vanished, alarms quieted, and the energy of the station stabilized. Ethan watched in awe. She had stopped the damage without harming anyone. The pirates were still attacking, but the station's systems responded better now. Ethan worked at the terminals, rerouting power and activating shields. Saris moved beside him, her hands glowing again, strengthening the shields with energy pulses that felt almost alive. One pirate ship managed to break through the outer defenses. Its energy blasts hit the station, shaking it violently. Ethan grabbed a terminal for support. "We can't let them breach the inner hull," he shouted. Saris looked at him, her eyes sharp and focused. "I will handle it," she said softly. Before Ethan could stop her, she moved toward the viewport. Her hands glowed brightly, and a wave of energy shot toward the pirate ship. The ship shook, sparks flying from its hull, and then it drifted away, disabled. Ethan could hardly believe it. She had stopped the attack, not with weapons, but with her own power, and she had done it without harming anyone on the station. The other soldiers stared, wide-eyed and silent. They had heard the rumors, but they had never seen her act like this under control. She was not a weapon to be feared recklessly. She was a protector. Ethan breathed heavily. "You saved us," he said. Saris turned to him. "You stayed calm," she said simply. "That is why I could control myself." Ethan realized then that their bond was stronger than he had imagined. She trusted him, and he trusted her. Together, they had defended the station without anyone dying. The station commander, Laura King, finally arrived at the wing. She had watched the monitors in disbelief. "What happened?" she asked, her voice shaking. Ethan wiped sweat from his forehead. "We were attacked," he said. "Saris helped stop the pirates without anyone being harmed. She is not the danger people think she is." Laura looked at Saris, who stood quietly, her hands still glowing faintly. "I see," she said slowly. "I suppose I underestimated her." "More than that," Ethan said. "I think you underestimated us, her and me working together." Over the next few hours, the station crews repaired minor damage, and the pirates retreated into the darkness of space. The outpost was safe, thanks to Saris and Ethan, but the incident left everyone thinking. Soldiers who had been terrified of her before now whispered with awe and caution. She had power, yes, but she had control. And most importantly, she had chosen to use it to protect, not destroy. Ethan sat beside her later, still recovering from the adrenaline of the attack. "You were incredible," he said softly. Saris looked at him, her expression unreadable. "I only acted because you did not fear me," she replied. Ethan smiled faintly. "Then we make a good team," he said. For the first time, he felt a true partnership. He realized that fear had always been the barrier between humans and her species. If humans could see her for what she was, not just the rumors, then perhaps understanding and trust were possible. The next morning, the station was quiet again. Ethan walked through the corridors, checking systems and making minor repairs. Saris followed at a distance, watching, helping when necessary. Other humans avoided them still, fearful and unsure, but Ethan no longer cared. He had seen what she was capable of when trust was present, and he would not abandon that trust. Officer Ben Carter approached Ethan. "I saw what happened yesterday," he said quietly. "She protected the station, I cannot deny it." Ethan nodded. Fear blinded us before. But now we know the truth. Ben hesitated. You are lucky she trusts you. Most humans would not survive her anger. Ethan smiled faintly. I do not want to make her angry. I want to understand her. In the following days, Ethan and Saris continued their work together. Their bond grew stronger. They communicated without words at times, understanding each other's movements and intentions. The other humans still feared her, whispered behind closed doors, and avoided the containment wing. But Ethan had learned that fear was powerless against trust. One evening, Ethan found Saris at the observation deck again. The stars were bright and the station was quiet. She stood beside him, silent and still. You saved the station, Ethan said quietly. You saved us all. Saris looked at him, her expression softening. No, she said. We saved it together. Ethan felt warmth in his chest. For the first time, he realized that her words meant more than just defense. They meant partnership, respect, understanding. As he watched the stars with her, Ethan understood something important. Fear had built walls around people for too long. Rumors and caution had kept them apart. But courage and calm, patience and trust, they could break those walls, and with Saris, Ethan had broken them. The attack had changed many things. The humans who saw the breach on the monitors could no longer claim ignorance of her abilities. They had seen the truth, even if they did not fully understand it. She was powerful, yes, but she was not dangerous to those who acted with respect and calm. Ethan looked at her and realized that their bond was something rare. It was more than trust. It was connection, something beyond words, beyond fear. He knew it would not be easy to convince others of this, but he also knew it was possible. For now, he was content to work beside her, to repair systems, monitor the station, and grow stronger together. The danger was real. The fear was real. But trust, he thought, was stronger than both. As the night fell over the station, Ethan and Saris remained at the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before them, distant and steady. And in the quiet hum of the outpost, for the first time, Ethan felt that they were not alone. They were partners, allies, friends, and nothing could take that away. After the pirate attack, the station returned to its quiet routine. Repairs were completed, alarms silenced, and the crew slowly resumed their normal duties. But the events of that night had changed everything. Ethan could see it in the way the soldiers moved through the corridors, the way officers whispered in closed rooms, and in the cautious glances cast toward the containment wing. Ethan walked through the corridors, toolbox in hand. Saris followed him at a careful distance. She had helped him repair damaged panels and reroute power lines, but she did not stay too close. Even after all they had been through, she remained cautious around humans who had never earned her trust. Ethan stopped at a terminal and checked the latest maintenance logs. The systems were stable, but he knew they needed constant attention. One failure could lead to disaster. You worry too much, Saris said softly, stepping beside him. Her voice was calm, almost musical. I cannot ignore potential problems, Ethan replied. Responsibility does not allow me to, she tilted her head. Most humans would be afraid. I am not most humans, he said with a small smile. She did not reply, but her eyes softened. Ethan could feel the trust between them strengthening even after the chaos of the attack. The calm did not last long. A message arrived from the council ordering Ethan and Saris to attend a hearing. It was a formal request, and the wording made it clear. The council wanted to understand her, and they wanted to judge her. Ethan sighed. They want answers, he said quietly. We should go. Saris looked at him. Judgment is not new to me, she said. But you are different. Will you stand by me? Always, Ethan replied. We face them together. The council chamber was large and sterile, filled with human and alien representatives. Ethan felt a wave of tension as they entered. Officers whispered behind them, and some of the council members looked at Saris with suspicion and fear. She walked calmly, her posture proud and dignified, showing no hint of weakness. The lead counselor, a man named Victor Lane, addressed them. We have reviewed the reports of the recent pirate attack. It is clear that you played a significant role in stabilizing the station, Saris. However, questions remain about your past actions and your intentions. Explain yourself. Saris did not flinch. I was captured after refusing to fight in a war I did not believe in, she said. Her voice was steady. I was labeled dangerous because I resisted. I am not violent unless threatened. My actions yesterday were to protect the station, not to harm it. Ethan stepped forward. She saved us all. She protected every human on this station without causing harm. She did not act recklessly. She acted with intelligence and control. Counselor Lane raised an eyebrow. And yet, rumors claim that you once destroyed an entire patrol. How do you explain this? Saris looked directly at the counselor. That patrol was armed and approached me with intent to kill. I defended myself. I did not pursue them. They were responsible for their own choices. Ethan nodded in agreement. Fear and misunderstanding have created stories. People judged her without knowing her. We have now seen the truth. She is not a weapon to fear, but a being to understand. The council murmured among themselves. Some were skeptical, some intrigued. The tension in the room was heavy, but Ethan felt a quiet confidence. He knew the truth, and he knew Saris. Counselor Lane motioned for silence. Very well, he said. We will consider your words, but the matter is not only about yesterday, it is about trust. Humans have lived with fear of your kind for generations. Convincing them will not be easy. Saris nodded slightly. I am aware. But I will not act violently toward those who show respect. I do not wish to be feared without reason. Ethan felt a surge of pride. This was exactly what he had hoped for. Understanding was possible, even if slow. After the hearing, Ethan and Saris returned to the station. Officers still whispered, but the tone had changed. There was curiosity now, not just fear. Ethan knew it would take time, but the first step had been made. Days turned into weeks. Ethan continued to work near Saris, maintaining systems and monitoring the station. She grew more comfortable in his presence, speaking more freely about her thoughts and feelings. She told him about her species, values, observation, patience, and understanding. They reacted violently only when they were threatened or when someone acted with aggression. Ethan listened carefully. So you are not naturally violent, he said. You only defend yourself or your people. Yes, Saris replied, and I only trust those who show calm and respect. Ethan nodded. Then we understand each other. One evening, Ethan received a call from the council. They requested him again, this time for a special briefing. They wanted more detailed information about Saris, abilities, and her intentions. Ethan felt a mixture of nervousness and resolve. He knew he could explain the truth, but the council's decisions could affect her future permanently. He and Saris arrived at the briefing room. The council members were waiting, their expressions a mix of curiosity and caution. Ethan took a deep breath. Saris has proven her loyalty and her control, he began. She saved the station from pirates. She did not harm anyone. She is not a weapon to fear, but a being to trust. Counselor Lane leaned forward. And what of her past, the attacks and incidents reported in other sectors? Ethan spoke firmly. Those incidents were misunderstandings. Fear and miscommunication caused humans to act against her. She defended herself, yes, but she did not seek conflict. Her actions are always measured and controlled. I have seen it with my own eyes. Saris spoke next. I do not wish to be feared, I wish to be understood. Humans have the capacity for courage and empathy. Ethan has shown me that. That is why I trust him. That is why I helped protect the station. The council members looked at each other. Some nodded, some remained skeptical. But Ethan could see that the message was sinking in. Understanding was beginning to replace fear. Counselor Lane finally spoke. We will continue to monitor the situation, but it is clear that your actions yesterday were not only controlled but intelligent. We must acknowledge that humans can indeed build trust with your kind. Ethan and Saris nodded. It was a small victory, but a meaningful one. The council had recognized that fear could be overcome, that understanding was possible. As they left the briefing room, Ethan felt a sense of relief. He knew the road ahead would not be easy, but the first steps had been taken. He looked at Saris, who was silent but calm. You were amazing, he said softly. I only acted because you showed calm, she replied. That is why trust matters, Ethan smiled. Then we make a good team. The days that followed were quieter. The station operated normally and Ethan continued his work. But he noticed subtle changes. Some officers approached him quietly, asking questions about Saris, curious about her abilities and her calm nature. They had seen the reports and the council's acknowledgement. Fear was still present, but it was less dominant. Curiosity and caution replaced panic. Ethan continued to work with Saris, maintaining the systems, checking energy outputs, and monitoring life support. Their bond grew stronger. They did not need words at times. A glance, a gesture, a small movement was enough to communicate. Trust had built a silent language between them. One evening, as they stood by the observation deck, Sarah spoke softly. "You have shown humans that fear is not always correct, that courage and calm can change their minds." Ethan nodded. "It is not just me, it is us. We work together, that is what makes the difference." She looked at him, her eyes softening. "Then perhaps humans can learn more than fear." Ethan smiled. "I hope so, and I hope we can teach them." In the following weeks, Ethan and Saris became a quiet example for the station. Humans who once feared her now observed her from a distance, watching how she interacted with Ethan. They saw control, intelligence, and care. They began to understand that she was not a threat to those who showed respect. The council remained in contact, requesting updates and reports. Ethan provided detailed explanations of her actions, her methods, and her intentions. Each report strengthened the case for understanding, trust, and cooperation. Saris continued to assist him in her quiet, controlled way. She helped with repairs, stabilized systems, and monitored energy fluctuations. Her presence was calm, a steady force in the otherwise quiet station. Ethan realized that the events of the past weeks had changed more than just their personal bond. They had started a small shift in perception. Humans who had feared her were beginning to see her as something more. Not a weapon, not a danger, but a being capable of thought, trust, and care. One night as they watched the stars together, Ethan felt a quiet hope. "We have come far," he said softly. Saris nodded. "Yes, but there is still more to do. Humans must learn patience, understanding, and trust. They must see beyond fear." Ethan placed a hand gently on the console near her. "Then we will teach them, together." She turned to him, her expression unreadable, but her eyes reflected something deep, something he had come to understand as trust. "And together," she said, "we will show them that fear is not always correct." Ethan smiled. For the first time, he realized that their bond was stronger than any rumors, stronger than fear, stronger than the doubts of others. It was a connection built on understanding, trust, and courage. And with that connection, they could face anything that came next. The station had returned to its quiet rhythm. The repairs after the pirate attack were complete, systems humming steadily, and life on the outpost felt almost normal again. Yet the events of the past weeks had left a mark. Humans who had once whispered warnings about Saris now glanced at her with caution, curiosity, and in some cases, respect. Ethan walked through the corridors beside her. His boots echoed on the metal floor, a sound that had become familiar and comforting. Saris moved silently beside him, gliding with her usual calm grace. The bond between them had grown stronger with each day, a silent understanding that required no words. They reached the observation deck, where the distant stars stretched endlessly across the dark void of space. Saris paused and looked out at the constellations. Ethan stood beside her, feeling the calm energy that always radiated from her. "You have changed things here," he said quietly. Saris tilted her head. "Not I alone," she replied softly. "You showed humans that trust is possible, that calm can overcome fear." Ethan smiled. "Then we did it together." Their quiet moment was interrupted by a calm alert. It was from the council. They requested an immediate meeting with Ethan and Saris at the main briefing chamber. Ethan nodded to Saris. "This is it. They want to finalize things. We should go." When they entered the council chamber, they found it filled with representatives from human colonies and allied alien species. All eyes were on them. Ethan could feel the tension in the air, but he also sensed anticipation. The council had seen her actions, heard his reports, and now they wanted to witness the outcome. Councillor Lane stood at the front. "We have reviewed your reports, witnessed your actions, and observed the bond you share, Ethan. We now recognize that fear has been a barrier between humans and Saris. The time has come to acknowledge her officially." Ethan felt his chest tighten with relief. Saris stood silently beside him, her expression calm but alert. She had waited for this moment for a long time, and Ethan knew it. Lane continued, "Saris is hereby recognized as a diplomatic envoy and protector of this station. She has demonstrated control, intelligence, and restraint. She has shown that humans can build trust with her species." Whispers filled the chamber. Some humans were still skeptical, but many nodded in agreement. The acknowledgement was not just a formality, it was a turning point. Ethan stepped forward. "This recognition is important," he said, "but what matters more is understanding. Humans must see beyond fear. They must learn patience and empathy. Only then can trust last." Sarah spoke next, her voice calm and firm. I do not seek recognition for myself, I seek understanding. Humans can choose to fear or to trust. I choose to trust those who act with calm and respect. Ethan showed me that. That is why I help protect the station. A council member, a woman named Leela Grant, nodded. Your actions speak louder than fear ever could, she said. We will take your example to other colonies. Humans must learn that fear is not always correct. Ethan felt a wave of pride. For weeks, he had worked quietly to build trust, to treat her as a person rather than a weapon. And now, the council had acknowledged it. Their message would spread across the galaxy, showing that understanding could overcome fear. After the meeting, Ethan and Saris returned to the observation deck. The stars stretched before them, constant and steady, just as Saris had said they were. Ethan watched her, feeling the quiet strength in her presence. You are free now, he said softly. No one can claim you are dangerous or unstable. You have proven yourself. Saris looked at him, her expression softening. I was never unstable, she said, only misunderstood. Humans judged me without knowing me. You chose differently, Ethan nodded. And that made all the difference. The next days were different. Humans who had once avoided her now observed her from a distance, learning from her actions. They saw her calm, controlled, and helpful nature. Fear still lingered in some, but it was no longer the dominant emotion. Curiosity, respect, and understanding began to replace it. Ethan continued to work near her, maintaining systems and monitoring energy flows. Their partnership had become quiet but essential. They did not need words to communicate. A glance, a gesture, a small movement was enough. Their bond was strong, built on trust and understanding, and it was visible to anyone who took the time to notice. One evening, as they watched the stars, Sarah spoke softly. Humans can learn patience, they can learn trust, they can change. Ethan nodded. Yes, but it will take time. Fear is easy, understanding is harder, but we can show them the way. Saris turned to him. Then we continue. Together, Ethan smiled. Together! The days passed and their example spread. Other humans began to interact with Saris more openly, observing how she worked calmly and efficiently. Some officers approached her cautiously, asking questions and seeking guidance. Ethan watched this with quiet satisfaction. The shift was slow, but it was real. Fear was no longer the only response. One afternoon, a young engineer named Tim approached Ethan. I want to learn from her, he said. I was afraid at first, but now I see she is not a threat. She is remarkable, Ethan nodded. Then listen, observe, and treat her with respect. Trust is earned, not demanded. Tim smiled. I understand, thank you. Ethan turned to Saris. She was adjusting a terminal nearby, her hands glowing softly as she stabilized a panel. She is learning, he said quietly. Saris looked at him, her expression calm but approving. Learning from observation is how we understand, she said. Humans can learn if they try. As time passed, the station became a symbol of cooperation and understanding. Humans and aliens worked together, learning from each other. The rumors of dangerous aliens slowly faded, replaced by stories of trust, calm, and courage. Ethan and Saris were at the center of this change, quietly demonstrating that fear could be overcome by patience and empathy. One night, Ethan found Saris at the observation deck again. The stars stretched endlessly before them, distant and steady. He walked beside her, feeling the calm energy she radiated. You have changed many minds, he said softly. Saris looked at him, her expression unreadable but her eyes reflecting something deep. No, you have changed them. You showed humans that trust is possible, that calm can overcome fear, that courage is not always violence. Ethan smiled. Then we did it together. Saris nodded slightly. Together. For the first time, Ethan felt the full weight of their achievement. It was not just about recognition or reports. It was about understanding, empathy, and trust. They had shown humans that fear could be overcome, that connections could be built, and that even the most dangerous rumors could be challenged by truth. As the weeks passed, the station thrived. Humans and aliens worked together, learning from each other. Saris became a respected figure, not feared but observed with caution, respect, and admiration. Ethan continued to work alongside her, maintaining the systems, monitoring energy flows, and quietly demonstrating the power of trust. One evening, as they watched the stars together, Ethan spoke softly. Do you ever think about the past, about why humans feared you? Saris nodded. Fear is natural, it protects species from danger, but it can also blind them. Humans judged me without understanding. That is their mistake. And now, Ethan asked, Now, she said, they begin to see, slowly, carefully, they begin to understand. Ethan placed a hand gently on the console beside her. And we will help them see more. Saris looked at him, her expression softening. Yes. Together, the station continued its quiet life, but the changes were lasting. Humans who had once feared Saris now worked beside her, learning patience, understanding, and trust. The council recognized her formally, and her presence became a symbol of cooperation between species. Ethan and Saris continued their partnership, quietly and efficiently. They repaired systems, stabilized energy flows, and monitored the station. Their bond remained strong, a silent connection built on trust, respect, and courage. One night, as they watched the distant stars, Ethan realized something important. Fear could be overcome. Understanding could grow. Trust could build bridges where walls once stood. And the bond he shared with Saris was proof of that. Saris spoke softly, breaking the silence. Humans can learn, they can change, they can understand. Ethan nodded. Yes, and together we will show them. She turned to him, her black eyes reflecting the light of distant suns. Together, she repeated. Ethan smiled. For the first time, he knew that their work, their bond, and their example would last far longer than any rumor or fear. They had begun a change that would ripple across the galaxy, showing that courage, calm, and trust were stronger than fear. And as they stood together, watching the stars, Ethan knew that whatever challenges came next, they would face them side by side as partners, as friends, and as symbols of hope.